Former governor of Nigeria's central bank, Godwin Emefiele, is planning to approach the court for the variation of the 300 million naira bill granted him by a high court of the Federal Capital Territory. The plan followed the inability of the immediate past Apex Bank boss to perfect the bill conditions. Emefiele had, on November 17th, pleaded not guilty upon his arraigned on a 5-count charge in which he is accused of conferring corrupt advantage. On November 22nd, Justice Hamza Maazu gave a ruling in which he granted bail to Emefiele at 300 million naira with two sureties in like sum. But it was learned that he was still being held in the Kuje Correctional Facility in Abuja owing to his inability to meet all the contractors attached to the bill. To discuss this, we are joined by Justice Ojienoh, a lawyer, live in the studio. Thank you so much for your time, Justice.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
All right, great. I mean, really, will I call it trying times for the former CBN governor. Can you just, explain to us in detail the context of the variation of this particular bill? I mean, it's from a legal perspective to, of course, to a layman perspective. What exactly does it entail?
The bill sometimes, or most times, is automatic,
okay,
except for very few set of offenses, maybe kidnapping, murder, and things like that, or rape. But if a person gets a bill that the court awards them, the court will, for the right reasons, impose conditions for bail, which is to prevent the person from absconding from justice. So there are times when the conditions that are imposed by the courts may appear to the person that it's imposed upon to be too heavy, too prohibitive for the person to meet, because there are times when the courts actually impose bail for the purpose of not wanting the person to be released, to enjoy the constitutional right of presumption of innocence.
Really?
Yes, that is.
Could that be politically motivated?
A few times, yes. And I
in
say,
this case, I mean, I may not
be able to say exactly whether that is the situation in this case. And I say this because the Supreme Court has had to castigate lower courts for actually imposing prohibitive conditions upon defendants who are supposed to be enjoying the presumption of innocence as stated in Section 36(5) of our Constitution. So variation is the person that has already been given bail by the court reapproaching the court to say, courts, the conditions you impose upon me is too much, it's too heavy a burden for me to bear. Can you please reduce it a bit or even reduce it substantially so that I'll be able to meet the conditions and also be able to, in turn, enjoy the presumption of innocence, because the person has not been pronounced guilty. The trial has not even been taken by the court. So the court cannot even really impose heavy fines or punishments upon the person. So I think that is what the former CBN governor is rightfully approaching the courts for in this case.
Right.
Whether the courts will grant it or not depends on the kind of arguments that have been advanced by his lawyers and the adversary lawyer, which is the prosecution, the government in this situation.
Now, so, I mean, let's backtrack a bit, right? Some of the opinion that this is some sort of political witch hunt, even though some insist that Emefiele, while in office, to some extent also abused the privileges of the office. What's your take on this?
Okay, for me, majorly, I think that, of course, Emefiele didn't help matters at all. Okay. But the fact that it didn't help matters does not mean that we should not stick to the rule of law. Because it is the safety of the government, the safety of everybody depends on adherence strictly to the rule of law. Whether a person was fair or not does not mean that they should be deprived of a standard procedure of law. So whatever I did at the time, he's still entitled to be heard. Nobody should be condemned unheard. Everybody is still to be presumed innocent until proven guilty by the fire of prosecution, examination, cross-examination, and potentially re-examination. So however it is, I feel that he is entitled to a proper procedural rule of law. He should not be witch-hunted. He should be given everything that the Constitution and the various administration of criminal justice laws, acts, as the case may be, provide for him as a person. Even the devil should be entitled to his day in court.
Now, there's also speculation of a plea bargain, somewhat happening. What's your view on that?
For me, I won't be very, very happy with a plea bargain. Plea bargain, to a large extent, is a show that the prosecution didn't do a good job or is not capable of doing thorough investigation that will expose whatever it is that a person is being accused of. It means that the prosecution is a bit weak. The prosecution cannot go the entire haul to prove the guilt of a particular person. So plea bargain is, come in the middle. I'm not for plea bargain in this kind of situation. Anybody that has looted a general commonwealth should be made to pay to the hilt, not be met halfway. They should not be allowed to keep some corrupt boodle for themselves while they are releasing as they wish to the common purse. So for me, I'm fully against it. If the prosecution is sure of its own self and of its own allegations, then it should go the entire haul to actually prove it.
All right, Justice, my final question to you tonight. How do you see this entire episode panning out eventually?
For me, I just feel that they will keep picking him up and dropping him off and picking him up and dropping him off until they get to whatever end that they are seeking to achieve. Even though I'm not happy with that approach at all. Investigation should always come before arrest. Thorough investigation should always come before arrest, and it shouldn't be a situation of perpetually picking up a person and dropping off the person, including on trumped up charges in some instances in this scenario before they now eventually brought up the substantial charges against him. I'm not happy with the way it went. I'm also not happy with the fisticuffs that happened between the DSS and the EFCC and the show of shame generally. Our prosecutorial institutions, the Attorney General and all the agencies, the EFCC, the DSS, they should pick themselves up and learn to do a good job when it comes to prosecution generally.
Justice Ojienoh, thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.